Today's guest is a serial entrepreneur who's turned early academic struggles into a career of building and scaling powerhouse brands. From nearly failing high school to becoming CEO of 6 companies, he's launched and exited multiple ventures, acquired others, and grown teams from the ground up, sometimes by over 3,000%. In this episode, you'll hear how he went from running 2 competing painting companies as an experiment to leading a portfolio of thriving franchises across diverse industries. We dive into the systems, mindset, and leadership philosophies that drive his success, the role of franchising and scaling, and why frameworks like EOS are baked into his playbook. Plus, he shares candid insights on hiring, firing, and coaching talent, balancing disruption with process, and raising the next generation of entrepreneurs.
Hey everyone, welcome to Business Unchained, where entrepreneurs and business owners come together to power up on their journey to greatness. My name is Bobby Mascia, owner of many businesses, including my passion, a wealth management firm that specializes in helping entrepreneurs. My life totally changed when I made a conscious decision to design my businesses to run themselves, not me and my time. If you're looking to get unchained from your business, make more money, and have more time, listen to the experiences of other successful entrepreneurs here on Business Unchained.
Bobby Mascia is the founder and CEO of Greenridge Wealth Planning. All opinions expressed by Bobby and his guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinion of Greenridge Wealth Planning. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for any financial decisions. Clients of Greenridge Wealth Planning may maintain positions in any securities discussed in this podcast.
Please welcome the man behind the 5-star franchising brand, Scott Abbott.
I had a conversation with my kids yesterday. So I have 3 kids. My oldest is 15. He'll be 16. My middle guy just turned 14 today. And then my daughter, who's 9. So the 2 boys, they're trying to convince me because this video went viral about my one son came home with a D on one of his history grades. And he's talking about this viral video. And he's like, hey, Dad, A students, they're the best employees. B students, they're our managers. C students, they run my business. D students are entrepreneurs, and F students are inventors. And I'm like, where the hell did you come up with that? He's like, it's a TikTok video. It went viral. I'm like, break that down for me. Let's go. Let's dig a little bit deeper, and let's talk more about the attributes of those types of people and the constraints that the A students have in their thought process versus maybe like the C or D students. Let's not focus on the actual grades, because education and learning matters. And I was listening to you talking a little bit about your journey and your educational journey, your experience, failing high school almost twice because of your entrepreneurialism. You avoided that second F. And you did a lot of soul searching and, later pursuit for education later on in life. And I think that's an epiphany that a lot of people don't have. They kind of just stay the course. And I'd love to kind of talk a little bit about that and your journey from starting your first business to, I think you exited 8 businesses. I think you've acquired like 6 or so. You've had businesses where you've seen 3,000% growth over 3 years. You've built a 500-person internal team with franchisees, about 5,000 employees across board. You're the CEO of 6 brands right now. Going from the kid who's almost failing high school to now running this huge business. I'd love to kind of dig into your mindset and a little bit about the secret sauce and how you build businesses and some of the failures that you've kind of learned from along the way.
And I'm curious, your 15-year-old son, what's his name?
Aiden,
I like that.
You have kids too, right?
Yeah, I got 5 kids.
But I was in trouble with 3. 5, that's a handful, literally.
5 is awesome. Yeah, it doesn't really change much after 3. It's just all chaos. So it's all, what it's like. I have a son who's 21 now. When he was 15, his name's Kieran. He's kind of typical super high energy, really outgoing kind of kid, very athletic, had trouble with school as well. I really think it's funny. I think Aiden's almost demonstrating some emotional intelligence and the power of making solid arguments with his dad to convince him that he doesn't have to have good grades in school, right? Because he doesn't like it.
Funny enough, it's my middle kid, and I don't know if you have a difference in terms of your oldest to your second child.
Sure, yeah.
But it's my second son, Danny.
Oh, it's your 14-year-old, Danny. Okay.
Yeah, he's the one who kind of maneuvers through conversations. He's got that.
Yeah. Yeah.
finds the
Yeah.
angle.
Yeah. Oldest kids usually are the most responsible. Middle kids are usually the more fun, and the youngest kids usually really loud. But you have a daughter
Yeah.
who's your youngest, so I'm curious to know how that goes. But
It's
I came from a
exactly,
family of
you hit the
7
nail
kids.
right on the head. We follow the prototype right
Do
to
you
the
really?
right to the last line.
Yeah. So I came from a family of 7, and anyways, I just think it's interesting. Kids, my first thought is, and you mentioned this as part of my story, I failed grade 12 twice. I saved the second failing through a argument, much like your son Danny used with you, and managed to squeak out a half credit for a class that didn't exist that he made up called entrepreneurship. I think it's important to note, though, my average was somewhere around a B+. I just failed all the classes because I never attended the classes, because I went to the office to work when I was like 15 through 18, and I'd show up for the tests, but I couldn't be bothered to show up for the classes. And I think it's interesting because I look back on that, it had to do with my father, frankly, who didn't value school or education.
Mm-hmm.
He valued experience and time. I spent a lot of time in the outdoors. I spent probably 2 to 3 months of the year, every year, camping or fishing, not in classrooms. My professors, it drove them crazy. And it is interesting because, like, my mom is a super high IQ, very intelligent person. She's almost undefeatable at Scrabble or all those like kind of games. Like, I beat her once in my life. Funny story is because I'm very competitive. I love competing, and I want to compete at the highest level, whatever I do. It doesn't matter what it is. And my mom is like a champion Scrabble player. So for 2 years, I downloaded this app, and I was training to be a Scrabble pro for 2 years on an app. And one day she came to visit. I live in Utah. She's from Canada, up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I flew her down to help one of my siblings move. And I'm on the steps. I'll never forget this, because I said, "Hey, Mom, you want to play a game of Scrabble?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'd love to play a game of Scrabble." I said, "Oh, okay, great." We start playing. She's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, I've just kind of been getting ready for this game for a while. She's like, she comes in cold. I've been training for 2 years. I did get the W, barely, but it was all that, all that to say that, there's different types of intelligences and abilities and EQ, IQ kind of stuff. And your son, Danny's right. If you're an entrepreneur, you can hire people to run your company for you. You can be very successful without having to, do it yourself. You don't have to be cerebral. And
Well, everybody learns in different ways. Everybody processes in different ways, and everybody has a different role.
Yeah.
And it's really tough to throw everybody down Broadway and expect them to not want to stray off and check out any other avenues.
Yeah. Yeah. You got it. But yeah, entrepreneurship was definitely my calling. I think it had actually, frankly, had more to do with my aversion to being told what to do, which my parents, I'm sure, didn't enjoy raising me. But I just didn't like being told what to do. I felt like I could figure it out on my own.
Now, where do you fall in the 7 siblings?
Yeah, number 2.
Number 2. Okay. All right, Danny, let's go.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, that's funny.
So you've had quite a journey, and I mean, this is the quite large shoes that you fill right now. So coming from a kid who, barely squeaked by, entrepreneur, one of the things that I know you talk about is sales. I know structure is something that you look for in businesses. Tell me a little bit about where the concepts of going off and scaling kind of came from. What was that? Where did that come from in your early journey? Dad was not really school focused parent. Mom was a little bit more, I guess, academic.
Yeah.
So where did your influences come from?
I think the franchising, first of all, if you look back, franchising is all about systems and processes and intellectual property and scaling. That's like, franchising is built to replicate something 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. And you look at the largest franchises in the world, they have 50,000 locations, right? So clearly franchising is designed for scale. And I'll say that I wish that I had made this decision more strategically, and I could make claim to somehow having some superior, vision of the future.
Just go with it, man. I like that. Play that card. Superior vision of the future. Let's go. Go on.
Yeah, let's pretend for a moment I had that. It really is in response to solving a problem that had me stumble upon a model that lent itself to scale. And it wasn't until I started doing it that I started to realize what I had, what I'd come upon. The problem I was trying to solve was very simple. We were running a painting company. This is back in 2003. up in Canada, in Edmonton, Alberta, and in Calgary, Alberta, in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and Vancouver, British Columbia. And these painting companies were all failing, every single one of them, except for the one where the owners were present in Edmonton, Alberta. And my co-founder, a guy I've known since he was 11, my best friend, we're like super tight still, partners to this day in many different capacities.
Mm-hmm.
We were at a friend's wedding. He was explaining to me these issues he was having around trying to expand in different markets in a very simple business, painting houses. And as he was describing it to me, I said, well, it just seems so obvious to me that the problem is that the people who are running these operations don't care, don't have skin in the game. They're not invested. There's nothing that keeps them there. And so in some cases they lie, they cheat. In some cases they just don't work hard.
Yeah.
It's all of the above. And these failures can be really addressed by introducing this level of skin in the game. And so I posited to him at this friend's wedding, I said, look, if we franchise this concept, first of all, we had to rebrand it. We called it 5 Star Painting. And we ran this little test where I actually launched 2 companies at the same time. One was called Paintworks.
Mm-hmm.
One was called 5 Star Painting. And I actually ran these businesses for 12 months, side by side. And I had Paintworks modeled after my main competitor, which is a company called CertaPro.
Yep.
First Service is a publicly traded company that owns it. And they were the inventors of franchising a painting business. And I took Paintworks and I copied CertaPro. And I ran that against 5 Star Painting, which had its own unique, differentiated approach to marketing. And then I put tracking phone numbers on everything I did. So if I put a yellow page out for Paintworks, beside that would be 5 Star Painting with a tracking number. If I had a direct mail piece, the same thing. If I had a lawn sign, the same thing. And 5 Star Painting had about 4-to-1 calls over the traditional advertising model of CertaPro or Paintworks. And that's how 5 Star Painting was born. So, what I was doing, which felt natural. And so
you A/B tested the marketing.
That's right.
Then you had just the same crew that would go out with a different shirt. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. I ran 2 painting companies out of one, the same people. It just, 5 Star Paintworks, 5 Star Paintworks. It didn't matter. But then what was key,
blue phone, red phone.
Really. And it really just came down to, you say A/B testing. I honestly want to come back to, I don't know where this came from. It just seems so logical to me. Like if you really want to know if something worked, you should test it against, either you have a hypothesis, test a hypothesis, do an experiment, see what happens. And it was in this process I started to understand the framework of building intellectual property of any kind. And also why franchising works is everybody just, anyone that wants to be an entrepreneur just wants to buy a recipe. Tell me to put 2 cups of flour in, 2 cups of milk, 1 egg, cup of butter, and I got crepes. Like, okay, that's the recipe. So here's the recipe to build a business. Now go do it. And if you do that, it'll always look like this, roughly. And it just worked. Like it didn't just work well. It worked really, really well. So much so that even in our test in 2005, when we actually launched, we had someone reach out to me and ask me off one of our advertising campaigns, hey, are you franchised? Like your website's perfect, your marketing materials are perfect, your uniform perfectly. It looks like you're set up to be a franchise. And of course, we answered yes. He was my very first franchisee, sold in August of 2005, and the first of many. I think at this point, I've been involved with about 2,500 franchisees over my career now.
It is pretty interesting how when people want to get into a business, my father was a franchisee for Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I remember as a kid growing up, I always hated being confined to a box. And I went to school for finance, marketing. I worked down on Wall Street. I ended up in my family business after both my parents got sick for a period of time. And trying to keep me in that box drove me nuts.
Yeah, I bet.
And it was really interesting because when I was stuck in that box, I always tried to find ways to get out. And then when I left my family business and I started my financial planning and advisory business, it was all about what can I do to disrupt the business because the entire business is stuck in a box. What I've learned from trying to get out of the box and disrupting is that you could disrupt all you want, but when you come back, if you want to really run a successful business, you have to have the right processes in place. You can't be totally disruptive and chaotic. You have to be disruptive, but yet process oriented.
Yeah, the disruption, it has to lead to something, right?
Yeah, it has to lead to something. There has to be something that keeps it all together. But there are a lot of people who they do. They want the recipe. And when you think about providing them the recipe, you said you didn't know about A/B testing. You just thought that that made sense. What was, as you were going through that process orientation, what influenced you to put these things together? Did you have something that you defaulted back to? Did you learn something from somebody? Is this a
Yeah,
combined?
this is where I think I'll give a shout out to education, right? Like you've heard of Kaizen, this idea of continuous improvement,
Mhm.
right? It's a principle that's taught in my undergrad. I took my undergrad's in finance and marketing, and my master's is
There
in
we go.
finance and entrepreneurship. So I have a strong finance background. I love numbers. They're very predictable, very understandable. They don't change. Once you send a formula, you can apply it. It's very, I think the reality is, and this is what I would encourage my kids, of the 5 kids I've got. I have my youngest son. I went for a run with him yesterday. He's 15 years old. He's a great kid. I love this guy. He's built to be an entrepreneur. Like he's already talking about graduating and starting businesses, and he's got big dreams, and you have to have that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you need a foundation from somewhere. Now, if that comes from the school of hard knocks, okay. Is that coming from studying on YouTube and books you're reading? Okay, these are all good things. For me, despite my 2 years of failure in grade 12 in high school, I moved on to do an undergrad, and that created structure and foundation that I can build upon. And while I was building my businesses, I could go to these textbooks and these applications, these professors, and ask questions. And it became things that were just now part of how I thought about the world and how I thought about applying these principles. And when Fascia Painting was launched and really was growing, I was in the middle of my MBA the entire time. And so I'm going to school with these very smart people, learning,
Mhm.
and then taking it to work.
Now,
And
were you
I
able to
think-
use them almost like a mastermind since you had an active business?
Oh,
Did you bring some of your
absolutely.
issues to the table, or?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no question. And several people that I went to MBA school worked for me. And so, I recruited people from those classes because they were really smart people.
Very cool.
And your son, Danny's correct. You need really good people.
Oh, yeah.
And so the only way to run a good business is that you got to find people. At some point, I'm a little bit ashamed to say this actually, but I'll say this. The beginning, you attract people to your organization. And I would argue that they aren't better than you because your business isn't worthy of someone better than you, because you haven't built something that's worthy to attract the right people.
Mhm.
And then, but there's an inflection point, and then you can attract the MBAs of the world, or there's people who are smarter than you in their disciplines. Like today, I look at my executive team that runs this company with me, and there's no question in their disciplines, these people are much smarter than I am. And so I can finally say I've got to that level. But at the beginning, it was, it's like, you're it. You
Yeah,
are,
well,
that's it.
as the visionary, you need people who are going to help to execute on your vision. And if you find people who think that they're smarter than you and it starts to detract from what it is that you're trying to accomplish, you're not able to lay the foundation in
Mhm.
order to get to when the smarter people come in. You said Kaizen, right? Those are
Yeah.
the ones who are helping you to improve on your vision and helping to develop that next step. Proof of concept, though, needs to happen within your vision. And if you don't have the right people to help you get there, you may never get there, right?
Yeah. I think this is interesting. I'm curious, actually, as we're talking about this. This is really intellectually stimulating. When you're the visionary, do you want people that are trying to change your vision, or do you want people that are following instructions and being told to do? But then at some point, that has to transition to now it's not just your vision, it's their vision. And they're able to, as we mentioned,
Mhm.
build on what you've done in a way that is better than you could ever do, but it's going in the direction you want to go. And I feel very fortunate that I've been able to attract the right people, and both as franchisees as well as in team members that have had that shared vision and have bought in. And this idea of Kaizen, I think it's critical in franchising because the world's changing constantly. And I'll give you an example that I think is a really powerful one. One of my brands is a brand called Bio One.
Okay.
So Bio One, what we do is if grandma passes away and you don't visit grandma often enough, someone's going to find out she's passed away, and it may have been a week. It's called an undiscovered death.
Yeah.
When that happens, someone has to clean up.
Yeah, it sounds a little nasty.
It's a very difficult business. So we help. Bio One is the business you call. We help first, business second. We are there for people in their darkest moments. In many cases, it's all kinds of challenges like that. Okay. It's biological hazard. And that business has changed dramatically. Think of what COVID did. Think of all the people that struggled in that COVID environment.
Yeah.
And how Bio One excelled during COVID, and its growth as a business was absolutely incredible. We're not in COVID any longer. We're 2025.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the same issues. And so that business is struggling to adapt because they saw all the things that worked so well in 2020 and 2021 don't work so well in 2025. And so Kaizen says you're constantly improving upon something. Mm-hmm. You can't take a formula and use that for the rest of that business existence. You've got to be reinventing and building upon what you have constantly. And I look at every one of my brands, they are all constantly doing some experiment to come up with a new formula that they can pass along to all the franchisees to build their businesses successfely. And
so do you use your franchisees? Because we all have these moments where, business is set on course and there's always has to be some forethought to think about when there may be potential needs to pivot. And I know that most business owners probably struggle a bit with that depending on where they fit in their mindset, but you have to manage across 6 different businesses. Are you gauging feedback from franchisees? Do you have an internal leadership team? How do you keep pace on every single one of those businesses? Even though I would say thematically they kind of head in the same direction, they do kind of pose their own individual issues and in terms of forecasting those types of things. So how do you deal with that?
So we do have specialists. Like we have a person who's in charge of customer experience, we call it, which is effectively making the phone ring and then answering the phone. Mm-hmm. And this sounds simple, but it's very complicated today. That in 2005 was just yellow pages and then answering the phone. Today it's voice, text, chat, AI, informed systems, automated systems, outreach, inbound.
Email.
It's like the amount of stuff that you're dealing with in this environment has gotten so much more complex.
Yeah.
So I have a team. It's a brand that's not franchised. It's called Pronexus that does that for brands we don't even own. So about 50 of the world's top brands in home services use my customer experience solution.
Okay.
And so now I have this central data repository, that has all this information that we can see trends happening in the industry. Like during COVID,
you have essentially a lead management system that collects the data and then helps you to trend out what certain instances are happening, whether it's time of the year or certain economic cycles or wherever way you want to kind of benchmark it. You're that's Pronexus, is that right?
Yeah, that's Pronexus. It's all lead flow, lead handling, and then the tracking of all of that. And it's like, for example, I could tell you that there's a natural flow of leads. Monday spikes at 10 in the morning. Everyone comes to the office. They don't want to work any longer. They call about getting their, some renovation done. And then it declines down through Friday. And then it spikes again Saturday and Sunday. But if Donald Trump announces tariffs on Monday morning at 10 a.m. and the entire news cycle becomes consumed with tariffs being talked about and what this means for our world, Monday isn't going to be what Monday should have been. Mm-hmm. So now you see this blip, and it's not just in my business, it's in all home services. In fact, all consumers act in that certain way. There's been like a ripple in the matrix. And so we do have a lot of data that lets us know what's going on in the marketplace in general, and it helps inform us and our teams around what's happening. So that is a very powerful tool. And it's coming back to like each brand is different. Each brand is always running experiments. We have marketing teams that we stand up within each of the brands, and they all report up to senior leadership that are, aces in their places in marketing in some capacity. And we don't use we don't experiment on our franchisees. We experiment with them. So we will do pilots of different kinds. We'll involve 6 to 10 franchisees. We'll pull in a system or a new marketing source.
Do you find that they're giving you a lot of the feedback from the sense of things that you have maybe not uncovered or your leadership hasn't uncovered? Or does your leadership team pretty much do a lot of that heavy lift of,
it's
all right,
both.
guys, where are we pivoting? When, what are the circumstances in which we have to do it? Here are some things we need to look at on the horizon.
Yeah, it's both. You don't want to be in the ivory towers, pretend like you know it all, and you tell everyone what's supposed to happen.
That's tough.
It is your job to be, if you are removed from the business, to do the analysis and to leverage that team to uncover things that the people who are in the middle of the battle don't see. So this should be very complementary. They're out in the field. They come back and they say, this campaign you gave me didn't work here. Okay, let's do some analysis and figure out what's happening. It's like, and you probably know this, Bobby, Subway back in the recession in 2009, its $5 footlong program campaign all came from a franchisee in Florida who launched this thing with a crappy banner in an attempt to try and just increase revenue, put all their sandwiches under one price, and it worked phenomenally. And so they saw this anomaly where Subway, in spite of that recession, some of these franchisees are doing exceptionally well. So the franchisor's job was to look at all the data and go, oh, there's a blip over here. How come this person over here is experiencing same-store sales growth while everyone else is down? Well, then you go and you investigate, you find what's going on, then you replicate. It kind of follows this mantra that one of my mentors gave to me, which is, you feed what works and you starve what doesn't. So I view my job as a franchisor to be looking for things that are working and then feeding those things as much as possible. And if something's not working, robbing it of any energy and resource and reallocating those resources to something that is working.
So I think of kind of the top layer of what you have going on. And with 6 different initiatives, I don't know do you think of them as different departments of one bigger business? What's your communication style? How do you gather all the information, interpret all the information, digest all the information, and then process out whatever information needs to go back through that funnel?
So we organize ourselves where each brand operates separately as not as a silo, but operationally. So we call it operational excellence, resides at the brand level with a brand president, a VP of operation, field consultants that support these franchisees. And then you have brand managers like marketers and assistants that are all doing the marketing. And this organization at a brand level deals with all the unique elements of that business. And then we centralize functions like technology, human resources, accounting, finance. Franchise sales is something that is very similar across all the brands, irrespective of what brand they're in. And marketing is also unique to the brand, but also the discipline is one that is put to the parent company, to our platform, and leveraged. So we are taking learnings across brands. So if I'm seeing something happening, because I've got brands in business to business, and I've got brands in business to consumer. And so we try and learn from these brands and then, cross-pollinate, if you will. So, in terms of communication structure, the franchisees, they experience that mainly at the brand president level with the VP of operations and their operations staff. Although we do about every semi-annual town hall where all franchisees do dial in, and I host that town hall. And I just talk about the vision of 5-star, where we're going, how we're doing, create some accountability, what we call rocks. What are the things that we're working on that are really important, that are really higher level? Like franchisees don't want to worry about.
So you say rocks, do you follow the EOS system? Is that where that comes from, or just the Rockefeller method in general? Or
EOS we call it. Yeah, absolutely. All my brands, all our divisions, our entire company operates off the EOS.
Really?
Yeah.
What's funny is in my search, right, my education, my self-education to find, how to put real processes in place. I've been through the gamut. I was actually up by you, well, not by you in Utah, but up in Canada for a seminar through Strategic Coach. And I've gone through like Strategic Coach, and I started to learn different things through reading books like E-Myth and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I come across Traction, which is EOS. And I was like, this is basically everything that I've learned in one manual. I could have skipped the whole process and ended up here. That's interesting that you follow that, because that's something that we've been using over here as well. What is it that drew you to that?
Bobby, it's, you and I had the same journey. I had like the Scott Abbott method, which is a combination of scaling up and all the books I've read cobbled together to create my own system. And I'd been using that system. One of the books I love, for example, is No Rules by Reed Hastings, right? This idea of constantly 360 reviews, candid feedback.
Yep.
And so I did it my way for years. Our company has grown now almost 4,000% in the last 4 years. So that pace of growth means that you're adding on team members at a pace that is so challenging. And I have never written a book. I can't just give people, here's 7 books for you to read.
It's
understand how this works. And Gino Wickman's book on Traction does a phenomenal job of, frankly, just pulling together all of these ideas.
It does. It sucks it all together, right?
It does.
So let me ask,
names everything.
Let me
They
ask
brand
you,
it all.
are you familiar with the term unique ability?
I mean, I don't know.
From the sense of
Keep going.
EOS. I don't remember if EOS talks about it, but strategic coach talks about it. It's a basic concept of just like what is your unique ability that you bring to
Okay.
the table that nobody else does, and how do you do more of that so this way you can
Yeah. Okay.
amplify what your greatest strength is and allow
Yeah.
others
Okay.
to kind of pick up some of the ancillary things that you would have been doing otherwise, but you've delegated them off.
Yep.
If you were to think about what your unique ability is, and I think that for listeners that are sitting here going like, I can relate to this guy. What would you say your unique ability is?
Yeah. I mean, I am an extremely positive person, and I am very good at seeing the best in anyone.
That's a
And
strong
that
trait.
can be challenging because it means that I also believe in people. I'm a natural coach. I've coached accelerated soccer for 12 years. Every kid that comes on my teams I coach, I can see them for what they could be, their potential. Today, they're not playing like they should be playing, but I see where they could get to if they were to follow the right regimen and practice. And in that same way, that's how I approach my companies, is that when I hire people, I see them for who they are and what they can become. And I believe in this so strongly that I coach them towards that. And
at what point, if they're not taking their own accountability to reach their own potential, do you change course?
This is something, Bobby, that I've worked really hard on, because my natural instinct is because it's actually part of my personal mission statement is to empower people. I take the greatest joy in life when I see that in some way I've helped someone achieve greatness in their own respect. And I've been in some way a part of that. I take great personal joy in that. So because of that, my weakness is I hire really slow and I fire really slow. I do the first part right. I'm very careful. No one enters this company unless I talk to them. Every hire has to go through me. And I make sure I take the time to make sure these people fit into my value system.
Okay.
But I don't fire fast, which people have been critical of. I'd rather lean, frankly, more towards that than fire fast. But I will say that I've worked really hard on this idea of radical candor and on candid feedback, and realizing that it's my responsibility as a good coach to tell people straight on when they are not delivering on the areas they need to deliver, and letting them know that we may not be the best fit as an organization. Because if I'm playing to win the Stanley Cup, which right now I'm a Canadian.
Okay.
Hockey's on right now, and it's so much fun to watch. My hometown Winnipeg Jets are in the running right now. If I want to win the Stanley Cup, everyone I put on the ice has got to be A+ material.
Mm-hmm.
And if I've got an A+ material player that walks on that field, goes on the ice, and they're playing at a C level, I can't keep them on the ice. They're going to ruin it for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I have been moving my mentality in general to more of this. Look, we are a high-performing sports team. We're not a family. I always correct people on that when they tell us the 5-star family. I'm like, no, we're not a family. There's dysfunction in families. You can say you're in a family no matter what. If you want to be on this team, you have to be delivering that level. And I've gotten better at it. I'm not perfect at it. Everything. I'm always working and refining my abilities in this area. Does
that give them the opportunity to self-select out? Like, do you see that's the result?
Or I help them, adjust or move out and find another future. And in many cases, because I believe in people, I help them find a place somewhere else that's maybe a better fit for them. And, burnout happens. Sometimes people do the same job over and over and over again, and they're so good at that job, but they don't want to do it any longer. It's like, well, maybe you should go do that someplace else then, because I need you to do that job here. And so
it's funny you say, we're not a family, because I think that was the resounding attitude that we've had in my business of, we're like a family. We bring clients in like a family. It shifted a little bit to team because we have to rely on each other. Sometimes you can't rely on family members as much as you can rely on, you might have to rely on your team. When you think about your kids, right? You just said your youngest is an entrepreneur, has that mindset, is like, I'm going to open up businesses. And you look at your family, your actual family.
Sure, yeah.
What's your mindset around the kids, and what's the future for this this 5-star moving forward? What does it look like for you and multi-generational opportunities? Is that something in the cards?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, if I were to add up all the business I own today, they're actively, I don't know, it's probably 11 or 12, maybe 13 that I'm, and of those, 7 of them are in 5-star franchising. And so I also am a land developer. I develop land in here. I have one of the largest projects in Utah, high end in the States. I have a mental health clinic that does therapy. I own an insurance brokerage with a partner. And so if I look at all these different businesses, not one of them is a business I'd ever think about wanting to pass on to my children.
What if they said to you, Dad, I want to do what you do?
I would help them. I would be all over that.
Had like mentor them, coach them, get them into their own businesses. What does that look like in your mind? I mean, obviously this is, not real yet for you, or it might be because your oldest.
Oh yeah. My oldest son's 25. I've got a 23-year-old daughter, a 21-year-old son. Like, I've got kids that could do it right now. If any of my kids came to me and said, Dad, I want to be an entrepreneur, would you help me? I would just help them get clear on their vision of what that means for them. And then I would do whatever they would need me to do as a coach, whether that could include financing and some pieces of that. I would not want to rob them of the incredible growth that comes from creating something on their own. I'd want to help them, build that thing, whatever that thing might be.
I was going to say, how do you let them fail? Because I'm sure, like most other of us in the community, that fail all over the place and just keep kind of waking up and, doing it all over again, whether it's insanity or not. But how do you make sure that you're not, to use more current terms, you're not helicopter parent, but you're allowing them to kind of go through that phase, but also supporting them so that this way they learn in the right ways? That's where my kids are a little younger than you, so I still have some time to think about that. So maybe you could kind of coach me here to think about how do you give them the same sense of risk reward?
It's like, you wouldn't let your kid walk up on a rope without a safety net the first time, right? Like, no good parent would say, okay, just go walk across that rope and don't worry, it's a 200-foot fall, but I've done it. You should be able to do it.
I think you'll be fine. We'll see.
Yeah, I think you're fine. Right? You put some safety nets there. And at some point, so the way I look at this and the way I think about it is, it's one of the hardest things that I've experienced as a parent, or as an adult even, is to watch someone I love so much struggle and not step in. That has been hard. Some of the language my wife and I use often is, it's like a hand up, not a hand out. Like, it'd be so easy for me just to cut a check and take care of your problems. But when I look at those problems, that's the refiner's fire. Like, that's what you need to go through. And I've had some of my kids who've gone through some very difficult things that are being refined in this moment today. And it takes everything for me not to just come in and just help take care of those problems. But I'm seeing what it's doing to them. It's like, in some ways, you're kind of watching. There are some things that can be overwhelming and overpowering to somebody that they're just not ready to handle. They have not got the tools yet to handle that. And so then being there as a support, in some cases a coach, moral support, and then maybe in some cases a little bit of financial support might be necessary, because you don't want them to be so overwhelmed that they fall apart, they crumble under the pressure, right? So there's this balance. And I'm not saying that I've got this right. I am very proud of my 5 kids, and I'm watching them grow in ways that I'm very proud of. I think they're all going to be very capable. They are all very capable, and they will all do very, very well in their lives, for sure, in the disciplines that they choose. And of the 5 kids, I think I probably have 3 kids that will be entrepreneurs. The other 2 will be professionals.
It's a pretty good ratio, 60%.
Yeah. I think the other 2 just don't realize it yet, but they're going to have to be professional. They're going to have to be entrepreneurs. They just don't get it yet. Because even if you're professional, a dentist or a doctor or whatever, you're going to own your own business eventually.
Right. And then open your own practices.
Yeah. Exactly.
I find it interesting. Somebody had, we were talking about just our childhood growing up, and I pick up my kid, I go and I coach the kids, and I do the same thing. So this is why it was really funny to relate to him. And he says, "When's the last time you saw a kid with a cast? Like, these kids, they're so babied. What are we doing to these kids? They have like these emotional issues, but they're not out there like stressing themselves physically. Like, what are we doing that's just not right?" And I was like, I don't know if it's not right because it wasn't what we went through, but I don't really know how to answer that. And you're right. You don't want to put them in a position where they're so stressed emotionally, physically, that they start to deteriorate and unravel. So that's a delicate balance of really, being that hand up versus that hand out.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I'd recommend, because I think what you touched on is something very important. and it's pervasive, sadly. And there's a book called Unwinding Anxiety. Anxious Generation is another book that came out recently that talks about this. Generationally, my kids, sadly, have grown up in something that you and I did not. Like, I can just guess, Bobby, the trouble you got into when you were 18 and 19. I'm sure you got into trouble.
No, I was a perfect son, perfect student, perfect
Yeah,
person.
okay.
Perfect.
There you go.
All
But
around.
nothing was recorded, right? You didn't tell the world. You wouldn't tell the world. It wasn't all broadcasted. It's not all there on the internet to see forever. And I got into plenty of trouble too as a kid. And I actually feel from my,
Jess is actually cracking up across the table because she's known me since I was 17 or 18.
Oh, really? So she knows.
And we went to college together. We went to Lehigh out in PA, and her husband and I are friends. And
yeah, I knew him when he was 19, and he was very nice, but I can't say he was the perfect person.
Yeah.
But he never got in any trouble.
Shut off her mic.
But I think it's just different, right? Like our kids are dealing with a different environment with social media and what it's doing to them. And I really would recommend anyone that listens to this to read the book, Anxious Generation. It will help you understand. And as a parent, I view one of my responsibilities is to keep my kids off of Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and what's the other one? I don't know, the video one that they always do, to try and moderate that. Mm-hmm. Because if they spend too much time on that stuff, it just builds all this anxiety and it's very challenging. So I would say that you don't want to, Coddling of the American Mind is another book that talks about this. You don't want to coddle them.
So you said you have a mental health business as well?
Yeah.
Are these things that you're dealing with in that business?
Well, I have a clinical director that runs the company. So I don't personally, I'm not involved day to day. I have therapists that work for me in that business. But one of the reasons I bought it, frankly, is you see this, there's a massive increase in people's acceptance for using mental health professionals, therapists to help them get through things. When I grew up, if you said you went to see a therapist, you get beat up on the playground. It's like there's something wrong with you, right? Today, it's like everyone's got one. And so I just believe that was a kind of a sign of demand increasing and therefore be good for the business.
To your point, all this social media, everyone's life is perfect if you're following social media. Everyone's on vacation. They're at special events. They're at parties. They're showing the drinks that they're drinking, the food that they're eating, the people that they're hanging with. Everyone's got the perfect life, and that's not reality. And I think that especially for younger minds who can be so easily influenced and don't really understand the gravity of all of this that they're taking in and how they're processing it and comparing it to their own lives and how ultimately they're going to create this anxiety that within them, that's problematic.
Yeah. Comparison is the thief of joy, right? If they're just always in this world of thinking about the future and it should look like what they see on the internet. So we can't, coming back to your point, like we don't want to coddle them. We don't want to make them weak. We know the hard things make people strong. At the same time, I didn't grow up with that stuff, so I don't know how hard it was.
So listen, if you were to leave our guests or our listeners with 3 points of advice, whether they're the 3 biggest failures, the 3 mantras that you've picked up, or a mix of each, it's a resource or just a word of wisdom, what would be 3 things that you'd want to leave behind to not only the listeners, but let's say it's your kids. Let's say it's something that you would leave behind to them to help them as a guiding light as they move through life.
Yeah, the most important thing in my view is relationships and people. People become before profits. They are like, I think about my own life and, I think through all the companies I own and have owned, and I have been a minority shareholder in almost every single one of them. Because I had this mentality that and this is another mantra, you need to create value wherever you go. Whatever you do, wherever you go, try and create value for people. And that comes from a place of wanting your journey in this life to be surrounded by people that are like-minded, going to the place you want to be going, and they can lift you up and inspire you. And so if you think about this life's journey, I'm 50 years old. I'm probably halfway. I'll make it to centenarian. Why not? But if I look back at my journey, I am so grateful because of the people that have gone through this journey with me. So the money and everything else, when you don't have any money, it feels like it's like the most important thing.
Yeah.
And at some point,
perspective at the time.
at the time. Some point you get some money, you realize, oh, wait a second, it wasn't the most important thing. The people in my life are the most important thing. And then I'd say lastly is, so I was at a conference in St. George, Utah with a bunch of entrepreneurs, about 100 of us together. And the son of a billionaire was speaking at this event. He's one of the wealthiest, I think they're the wealthiest family in Utah. And he was sharing his father's story, who died young, but incredibly accomplished. You know, he owned the Utah Jazz and a number of different things. And he said, you know, what was the cost of that? He died young, 65 roughly, of completely preventable diseases.
That's terrible.
And I would just make the point that there are things that are probably worth giving up for prosperity because it gives you freedom. But do never, ever let your health be one of those things.
Amen to that.
You know, your personal health, your physical health, your mental health, never let those things be the price to pay for prosperity. So I think those are the three things I'd give as advice.
I love that. And I'm just going to put a little of, you shared your Scott Abbottisms with me. I'm going to give you a little bit of my Bobby Masciaism, because I've looked at this when I started to get into my mid 40s, and I wanted to reframe this for myself. And I said, for all intents and purposes, I was training till I was about 22. I wasn't really an adult, a person, of somebody who was able to be productive in society until then. So really my life started at 22 after I graduated college. So now 22, I'm 46, 46 minus 22 is 24.
Finance degrees come in.
If I live to 70, I'm only halfway there. Right. So my anticipated lifespan in terms of the general male is 82, I think it is. Right.
Yeah.
So I still got I still have 6 more years before I'm halfway on my mid-age crisis mark. And if you're looking at Centurion, it pushes it even further. So reframe perspective. You're not even halfway there, dude. You got a long time to go. You've only run about 30% of your race.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, that's awesome.
Well, dude, I love the conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy man, and all words of wisdom that you shared with us are very much appreciated. And that's a wrap, man. Scott Abbott, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Bobby. Great.
Hey guys, Bobby Mascia here. If you've been listening to Business Unchained, you know we're creating conversations that matter, real stories and strategies to help business owners and entrepreneurs win. We've been putting a lot of work into these episodes in our online community, bringing you content that can actually move the needle for your business. And we're everywhere: Instagram, LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, TikTok, you name it, we're there. So look, if you're getting value from what we're doing, please follow, subscribe, and drop a quick comment or like. It really helps us grow this thing. Just search Business Unchained and you'll find us everywhere.